Now stop crying. A sentence. 5 words. Spoken in kitchens, on playgrounds, in supermarkets. Said so often, so casually. But have you ever truly paused and considered what we're really communicating? We're saying, your feeling is wrong. Your sadness is a burden to me. Hide it, push it away. Be someone you are not right now. In that moment, we are not just taking away our child's tears, we are taking a piece of their soul, and we don't realize we are laying the foundation for the anxious adult who can never ask for help because they've learned that needing something is a weakness. For the burned-out perfectionist who no longer feels the signals of their own body because they were taught to push past their limits. For the depressed person who lost connection to their inner world because that world was deemed unacceptable. What if I told you that the greatest danger to our children isn't the outside world, but the well-meaning, relentless effort to shape them into good, functioning, compliant human beings? What if the obedience we so often demand is, in truth, the enemy of mental health? This is not an accusation, it's an invitation to radically rethink parenting. Guided by the deep groundbreaking insights of physician Dr. Gabor Maté, who shows us how to give our children the one thing they truly need to grow, not our control, but themselves. Every child who comes into this world carries within them two vital innate needs, the need for attachment and the need for authenticity. Attachment is the biological anchor, the rock solid, instinctive certainty in the child's heart. I am loved, I am safe. My parents are my haven. This need is absolute and non-negotiable. Without the felt security of attachment, a child's nervous system remains in a constant state of alarm. The stress hormone cortisol floods their body. In this state, they cannot learn, cannot grow, cannot thrive. They can only survive. Authenticity is the inner compass. It is the inborn connection to their own truth, to their emotions and impulses. Joy, anger, fear, curiosity, sadness. An authentic child is in tune with their true self. They express these emotions unfiltered. They're loud when they're happy. They cry when they're sad. They scream when they're angry. That's not misbehavior. It's the language of aliveness. It's the raw, unfiltered essence of who they are. The fundamental tragedy of human life, Maté says, begins here. When the child learns a terrible lesson, if I am authentic, if I show anger, if I cry, if I loudly express my needs, then I risk losing connection with my parents. Their gaze turns cold. Their forehead creases. Their voice becomes sharp. They sigh with irritation. They withdraw their love, their warmth, their presence. For a child, that feels like losing oxygen. And in that moment, the child has to make a choice. An unconscious, but heartbreaking choice, between their authenticity and their attachment. And Maté tells us clearly, a child will always attachment. It is a survival instinct. They sacrifice authenticity to preserve the relationship. They betray themselves to avoid being abandoned. They learn to swallow their anger. It becomes a knot in the stomach. They learn to hide their sadness. Behind an empty smile, they become the class clown to mask the heaviness inside. They become experts at reading the tiniest nonverbal cues and expectations of others. They learn to ignore their own needs and dismiss them as unimportant in order to meet their parents' needs. They become the overly compliant little helper. They split off a part of themselves. They build a false self, a mask that seems lovable and acceptable. They become an easy child. But the price of that adaptation is unimaginably high, because suppressed emotions never disappear. Never, they fester, hidden deep within the body and soul. They turn into inexplicable anxiety disorders, chronic stress that weakens the immune system. The repressed rage of the child, Maté says, can manifest as an adult autoimmune disease, the body attacking itself. A tragic metaphor for the original inner conflict. The ignored grief becomes deep depression. The compulsion to be nice leads to burnout because the adult never learned to say no and take care of themselves. The inner emptiness from losing the true self is filled with addictions, work, food, drugs, shopping, and the adult wonders, who am I really? What do I truly want from life? That answer was buried decades ago in the child's bedroom. So, how do we break this tragic cycle? How do we become the safe harbor where our children can feel unconditional attachment and preserve and unfold their authenticity? The answer begins with radical, courageous acceptance. All feelings are allowed. All the emotion is never the problem. It's just a messenger, a signal from the inner world, a signpost to an unmet need. Picture your child. They're having a meltdown because they didn't get their favorite toy. The storm is raging. Your job is not to end the storm. Your job is to be the lighthouse in it. You don't kneel and say, "Stop that." You take a deep breath, center yourself, and kneel beside them. You say calmly, "Wow, you are really, really angry right now. I see that. I understand. It's so disappointing when you want something badly and can't have it." You wait. You hold space for that big emotion. Only after the storm has peaked, you might add, "It's okay to be angry, and I'm here with you." The boundary remains. The toy is still off limits. That's leadership. But you've unconditionally accepted the feeling. You said, "I see you. Your feeling belongs here. You are safe." You separated emotion from behavior. "I understand your anger, but hitting is not okay. If you need to let it out, we can punch this pillow together or stomp our feet really hard." You guide your child through the feeling instead of punishing or shaming them for it. You become a co-regulator for their overwhelmed nervous system, lending them your calm. The second, and perhaps hardest step, is to drop our own mask. Children don't learn from our lectures about patience. They learn from how we curse in traffic. They don't learn from our words about respect. They learn from how we speak about others once they've left the room. They learn from who we are. Our own unresolved wounds are the biggest obstacles. Often, the very emotions that were forbidden to us as children are the ones that trigger us most in our own kids. If we suppress our feelings, smile through the stress, swallow our own anger until it explodes at the smallest thing, what kind of model are we when we lose it, when we yell? The greatest act of strength is not to ignore it. It's to go back to your child afterward and say, "I'm sorry. I was totally overwhelmed and stressed earlier, and I yelled at you. That was my mistake, not yours. I'm still learning how to deal with my anger too. I love you." In that moment, you don't just repair the bond on the deepest level, you show your child that people make mistakes. That conflict doesn't mean love ends, and that love and truth are strong enough to heal any rift. Banish the phrase "be nice" from your vocabulary. It's poison to authenticity. It means, be how others want you to be. Replace it with questions that open the door inward. Tell me how you feel. What do you need right now? Your opinion matters to me, even if I make the final decision. Instead of "don't be scared," try, "I see you're scared. I'm with you. We'll get through this together." Stop rewarding blind obedience. Start celebrating the courage to be authentic, the courage to tell the truth even when it's hard, to say no, to have a different opinion, to be different. Praise not the outcome, but the process. "I saw how brave you were when you told that boy you didn't like what he was doing." It's not about being perfect. This isn't another pressure on parents. There are no perfect parents. It's about being real, a human being who doesn't see their child as a project to fix and optimize, but as a miracle to unfold at their own pace, in their own unique direction. A child who feels welcome with all their feelings, their radiant joy, their thunderous rage, develops an indestructible foundation, a deep inner knowing of their own worth, simply because they exist. They won't grow into adults, chasing approval like an addict, because the approval that truly mattered they already received from you. That is the greatest gift. That is the true legacy. Not a child who does what we say, but a child who knows who they are, and dares to be that person, in a world that constantly tries to make them someone else.